Hello, welcome to this video on the Proxxon AH80 surface planer and jointer. I've been looking for one for some time and hunting around. There's not much out there, it seems, and all the reviews and so on that I could find about this particular model were either in a foreign language or the super cheesy promotional material that you get from Proxxon. So having taken the plunge and bought the device, I figured I'd do a quick video for anyone else who might be out there in the same position looking for a small surface planer and jointer. So here's a quick review of that. Hope you enjoy. So this is the Proxxon out of the box. It arrives nicely packaged and you get a few bits and bobs with it. Obviously a set of instructions, clearly not been opened. You get a push stick jobby. You also get a little rubber grommet to adjust for your dust extraction. There's a little bit of assembly involved. Basically the fence and this little guide thing are separate. They come with the screws. You also get this little T-bar Allen key thing, and you basically attach this to the fence, and then this gets screwed onto the bottom of the machine. It's a little bit fiddly, but ultimately doable. Took, I don't know, 5 minutes or so to do that. So so once you've assembled it all, then it's pretty much ready to go. So, you know, initial thoughts on this device. Well, the first thing is, I mean, it is absolutely tiny. Absolutely tiny. I mean, it is literally sort of whatever that is, 16 inches by about 14 with this guide all the way out. So it is absolutely tiny, and it really doesn't weigh very much. I mean, it's got a decent weight to it, but really doesn't weigh. So for my workshop, at least, being able to just pick this up and put it on a shelf is one of the sort of a good feature. But admittedly, I saw it and I immediately got a bit worried about it, thinking, how can anything of this size actually be any good? So it remains to be seen. Generally speaking, though, I mean, you know, it doesn't weigh a lot, but it is pretty heavy. This is all reasonable. I mean, this is, I guess, sort of machined aluminium or something. It does scratch very easily, but I don't really care about that, so that shouldn't be a problem. Initially, though, I was a bit worried. Some of these dials and whatever else, they just seem a bit flimsy and a bit wobbly. And even things like adjusting the depth of the cut, it's not very precise. It doesn't fill you with loads of confidence that it's going to be you know, really high quality. But generally speaking, it's okay. It is solid. Obviously you can screw it down. You need to screw it down to a bench. I think if it had a little bit more weight, that would be good. And generally speaking, you know, I think most people would probably accept something probably twice the size of this. I had another look at Proxxon in terms of the other stuff they do, and they do seem to have an awful lot to do with sort of model making. So whether or not this is geared towards people who are doing, you know, smaller things, and maybe it's not totally suited to proper, you know, to workshops doing full-size projects, I don't know. So I was a little bit worried when I got it out of the box, thinking maybe it wouldn't have the guts to handle big pieces. So the idea with this machine, I think, is that you can use it in two kind of forms. I guess, you know, you can slide this guy over, and then you can just use it as a normal surface planer, but also you can use that to create a mini kind of guide and use it as an edge jointer and edge planer. So obviously you can use it as an edge joint to just adjust the width here and just run your piece through, and equally you can use it on the surface as well if you need to. But obviously if you're using it in that orientation, you are limited. It is only 8 centimeters, so 80 millimeters in terms of that kind of width that you could fit through the machine. Everything else is quite neat. There's a standard size dust extraction, and as I said, you do get an additional grommet if you need it to fit yours. Mine goes straight in, which is quite neat. So once the machine's built and you've got everything in place, obviously the first thing to do is to adjust the fence. Now this will actually support going at a variety of angles, but one of the things is that this just does not feel precise at all. But fortunately, I guess because of the design of this, when you slacken these off, it kind of, you can see it kind of flops around, and then you can put it at whatever angle you like, and then so that will slide around. But I guess, you know, a consideration is, well, this fence is really quite floppy, and certainly the angles it produces are in no way precise. You can't go by this gauge on the side, but at least I suppose in its credit, once you lock it into the sort of position you want it in terms of the horizontal, you can then adjust the fence, and actually doing it with a square you can see it is possible to get it reasonably square. You can see that. It is possible to then get it reasonably square by manual adjustment. Lastly, in terms of the build, so it's obviously a European plug, and mine arrived just with this funny adapter on it to turn it into a UK 3-pin plug. Certainly it all seems pretty flat and level, so that's the gap, which should be around about 6mm. If I knock this back down to 0, then we would hope to have a nice flat surface, and we do. So that's a good start. So one of the things about this is it's supposed to be really quiet, and obviously no woodworking equipment is really quiet, but this one especially was supposed to be. And I suppose certainly it's not noisy, but it's not super quiet. So in my garage here, it is a bit windy outside. You can see that a sort of a normal level is around about 50, and then when we turn it on, jumps up to about 100, so it's about a 50 decibel increase, which I think isn't totally unreasonable. Now the other thing to note is actually when you use the dust extraction, then it does change the volume again. So what's it actually like at planing stuff? So I've got a piece of, this is just pallet wood, which this is the surface, the finish I got after I ran it through my planer, my big planer thicknesser, and then the edges looked a lot like this. They're all cut up, and then that, if you can see, is the finish I got running it through the Proxxon device. Actually the edges are really quite nice and square, and it's remarkably good. Obviously one thing to note is you've only got very limited thickness you can take off with this in one hit. So what you will find, if you do need to take things, if you've got very rough pieces that you do need to take down a lot, you're probably going to have to do multiple passes, but that's fine. So I'm going to set it at 0.6. So I've just got a small piece here. This came out of a packing crate, I think. You can see it's quite rough. I'm going to try and surface it and also edge it. So we're just going to run this through. I've got it wedged. At some point I do actually need to clamp this down, screw this down into the work desk, but I'll probably cut a piece of wood to sit it on before I do that. So I'm going to put the dust extraction on and then run it through, and so what we'll do is we'll go for the surface first. So we'll just slide that in there and see how we get on. So obviously that's broadly speaking what we started with, quite rough, and probably trying to take off that much in the first hit was perhaps a bit ambitious, but nevertheless we've ended up with actually a really quite nice smooth edge, and there's a great big knot here. I think that's why we got stuck halfway through. I think certainly that would be okay. We'll perhaps run it through one more time just to make that extra nice, but actually that's done a pretty good job. I'm just going to run it through on the edge just to see how that gets on. So what I'm going to do is just adjust this out, find approximately, now obviously I should be running the soft edge through, the straight edge, about there. Let's go again. So that's what a rough edge looks like, and this is the edge that's been through, and that edge, and in fact that there is really quite nice. And I think that's alright. Maybe I haven't, yeah, pretty happy with that actually. So there we go, there's my review of the Proxxon AH80 surface planer and jointer. On the whole, very happy with it. Is it worth the money? Not sure, but certainly now I've got it, I'm sure I'll get many years of use out of it, fingers crossed. Hope the video was useful. Do leave a comment if you enjoyed it, and by all means subscribe to the channel. I'll be adding more videos in the future. And also, if you feel like it, subscribe to my other channel, Awesome Switches. It's well worth a look. Anyway, in the meantime, have a good day and crack on.